Please note this meeting of the Pembroke Historical District Commission is being made available through a public recording and audio broadcast on the Comcast Government Access Channel 9 YouTube channel at Pembroke Meetings LS and is being recorded for a future broadcast at a future date. Comments made in open session will be recorded. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting this evening. I am the chair, Christopher Perry, with a full quorum tonight. We will be having two substitutes for tonight's quorum. We are missing or replacing Kyle and Stephen, who have their terms have expired or resigned. Rich Malloy and Allison Glennon will be filling in on their positions for voting members tonight. We need to make one minor amendment to the agenda. We are looking for the minutes that was not posted, but we are looking to make a motion for review of the minutes regarding June 2nd meeting. Do we have a second on the motion? You have a second? And did everybody have the opportunity to review? Does everybody concur?
Yes.
Yes.
Meeting minutes are accepted for the June 2nd meeting. First up, so let's see, Francine does not appear to be here. Should we discuss this or?
Want to just hold off and see
If he shows up?
I think we should get it.
Okay, all right. So coming up for, we're saying a recommendation. Okay, I'd like to make a recommendation, since the vacated positions of Stephen and Kyle, I would like to make a recommendation to our commission that Allison and Rich move into the vacated position and that we then seek applicants for the alternate positions at a later date, but I would like to make that recommendation now. Everybody concur? Okay, second on the recommendation. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Yeah. All right.
So we will ask the selectmen to appoint two new alternates and we will
Correct.
take the current alternates and ask them to be appointed as full members of the.
Correct. Yep.
The one thing that I think will come up is Stephen and Kyle were two different terms.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, their time,
So Steve
yeah, so
has chosen not to seek reappointment and Kyle
Correct.
has indicated his intent to resign.
correct.
So
So-
Steve would be the first one to be filled.
First term, the first
So,
term.
and Allison would be alternate number one, should be the first one filled.
Correct.
And then Rich would be the
Correct.
second one filled.
So the remainder of Kyle's term.
For the remainder of his,
Okay.
Kyle's turn.
Yeah.
correct.
And is his email, is that all, yeah, that's on the town side? Has that been like received? Is there
You will need
any-
to submit it to the select board. as
Yeah.
well.
So then so until that, if we don't know if that's happened, so they can do both appointments if they haven't had the.
Yeah, so the plan is right now that we'll only need to go in front of the select board once versus twice because of the timing of it all. But that's why we made
But
But Allison, you are correct. They have to submit a
Yeah,
letter.
so that's what I'm saying. So
but
I don't know when it's gonna be on the
I've
agenda.
seen an email
See.
from both.
Vote.
yes,
But did it go to, so did it go to the town?
it'll go to Sabrina first to get on this. Yeah,
But for the paperwork, they need to have the chip.
Yeah, so that's what I'm
You're
saying.
right.
They should know whether they have.
yeah. So I've already been told that the
They don't definitely.
July 9th meeting has already been postponed. So we're gonna be at the end of July anyway. So now we have extra time to
It's gonna,
get
it's gonna
compliant.
be, Stevens was automatic, like his
Yeah.
spot is vacant. And then, once Kyle has submitted one way or the other,
Mhm.
then they'll know that if there's the second,
Yeah.
whatever
Oh,
that term
he
is.
Well, he did
He did submit a letter.
He did submit a
Oh, we
letter.
did, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he sent it to the
Okay.
Sabrina in
Yeah.
the manager's office, so we are good to go. Anyway, so Moving on further down, we have Mr. Robert DiMarzo, Friends of the Pembroke Library, here to speak to the committee about a future potential project at the library.
Good evening, thank you for having me. For the record, I'm Bob DiMarzo, president of the Pembroke Public Library Foundation.
Thank you.
Friends are a separate organization, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, and was founded with the goal to raise funds to supplement the library for programs, equipment, furniture, and in addition to the children's wing. The wing is part of a long-term plan for the library, and the children's programs have been highly successful. I'm just going to pass around some of these. You can just see the attendance and the amount of people that visit the library in 2024. There were 87,287 visits, 98,463 books checked out.
Too many.
Programs offered, 498. Attendees, 18,136. Computer uses, online resources, and collection and so on, 8,691 file loads. Very busy, very active. But it's just so heartwarming to see the aunts, the uncles, the brothers, the sisters that bring their children to the reading and story hours. You see, it just warms my heart at least. And as you know, reading is important in everybody's life. And we believe that today's readers are tomorrow's leaders. How important is it? If you can't read, you're behind the 8 ball. Over the past 2 years or so, I've been talking to Scott Shaharan about space in the library for many historic documents, et cetera, that are just floating around town buildings, undocumented, unpreserved. Matter of fact, I did get up into the attic of Lydia Drake. There's some old town reports, there's books, there's an old cobbler's bench. There's things up there that just roasting. The foundation, along with the library, and the final stages of design for the addition to the children's wing. And as part of the addition, we plan a historic room with historic document storage / archive room. I'm not sure if storage or archive is the better word. Maybe you guys have some ideas about that. Pembroke has a rich history, as we know. Pembroke Resolves, the King's Inn, shipbuilding, and so much more. And your participation and dedication to the history of Pembroke proves that. That you want to see that things are preserved and made available and documented to current Pembrokians. Is that the correct word, Pembrokians?
I think so. We can go with it.
And future Pembrokians. So why am I here? I'm asking for support from the Historic Commission as required by the Community Preservation Act in order for the Community Preservation Committee and later town meeting to approve a sum of money from the historic and unreserved line items of the Community Preservation Funds to build that portion of the new one. And this is what is required for community preservation. And it talks about documents or artifacts in both lines, preserving them. And that's what it's actually doing, as well as making it available to the public in a professional way. Okay. Pass around. This is plans. Does everybody get one? So you can see what we're talking about. This is not finalized. Okay, did you get one? Okay. If you see the yellow square up top, that yellow square, the blue, and the white to the left is the addition, 27 square feet. The blue part would be the local history room, and the white area next to it would be the archives, the storage. We're working on making that a little larger after this. So the historic room and archive will be able to preserve, consolidate, and disseminate public's existing historic collection, as well as future additions. The main room itself will have a large TV monitor for presentations. It will also be available for various groups, allowing the flexibility of the room, including your commission meetings. There are 2 entry doors to the history room, either from the main library or the children's area. Historic presentations and classes for the public, groups of children can easily be held either way. Julia Nee, the library director, envisions the walls decorated with copies of historic documents, photos, and memorabilia. And possibly any furnishings have a historic style to it. A table, there's a company by Planet Fitness and Tractor Supply that makes tables out of old wood. And went in there, beautiful stuff out of old chestnut. Wouldn't it be nice to walk into a historic room like Plymouth has and look at some of the furnishings? Maybe Judy's house has some stuff in there still. Okay, a large percentage of the project has been funded by a private donation, as well as additional fundraising and state grants. The town manager on many occasions has says he plans a sum of money to be provided at the fall town meeting. With money from the Community Preservation Fund and all the various fundings just mentioned, it can then allow the children's wing dish to be fully funded at the fall town meeting with no debt. And that's hopeful, but we think we can get there hopefully. So I'm asking you to consider this proposal to preserve documents and artifacts to be of historical significance and issue whatever document is necessary. We believe the dollar amount for the Community Preservation Fund should be based on the size of the rooms of the historic room, as we discussed, as a percentage of the total construction costs, as well as furniture, fixtures, equipment. We just received the study estimate from the architect an hour and a half ago. I was on my way back from the cardiologist. They found a heart.
Oh, they did?
Good for
You have
another
one?
year. They scanned it, did all this stuff, and good for another. The bid or the estimate, and this is just an early estimate, came in higher than we thought, but it needs to be reviewed. Paul Gransel, who in this business, thought there was some issues in it, so we don't have any hard numbers yet, but the number possibly from community preservation would be about 300,000. As far as the ability to the town to fund that portion, there's a lot of money out there still. For 2025 fiscal year, the surcharge that went into the fund was $408,948.28. Administration still had $174,000 to spend on theirs. Historic resources, $108,776. Community housing, $224,000. Open space, $50,000. Reserve money that's been allocated but not spent yet, $1,029,131. And this is where I think the bulk of the money can come from. Unreserved money that is sitting there, waiting for something to happen in these categories. $1,016,653.51. This is from the town accountant Mike Buckley about 3 weeks ago. So a lot of money sitting there still, doing nothing for this community. As of July 1st, days ago, according to community preservation, those funds increase by whatever is billed out the total year. So it should be increased total by at least 408,000 as it was last year. So I don't know, maybe they divided by 5, so 80,000 to each pot. Or something like that. So there's a lot of money to go around.
So
And
according to these numbers, you have almost $3 million. It's just floating around.
there's $1 million in it to spend for somebody somewhere, plus 100,000 that's dedicated strictly to you folks.
And those are all unreserved. Like
It's
those are,
unreserved,
like
right?
not already.
The reserved,
Town, it's not
the
spent.
reserved is $1,029,000.
So that's the stuff that's already been appropriated, but it
And that's
hasn't.
That's separate.
Is that like things like the playground?
Yeah, the other was just 500,000
Yeah.
for the playground.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that you folks, I think procedurally, there's a few issues here. One, agenda-wise, by saying,
I think you need to actually have an application.
an application and
to vote
all
on.
that, but I'd like to at least get a consensus of discussion, how you folks feel about it.
Before we do anything, I have to recuse myself from this conversation because I am the clerk of that committee. Pembroke Public Library Foundation.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Judy, for the transparency. So you're just looking at this point in time as a get a feel for
Feel for-
where we are. So,
Where they can move on.
so and I appreciate the time that we spent when you first introduced this to me, Bob. The only thing that I have a question on, what are you exactly looking for from us? Like black and white, what are you looking for?
A letter, a document, or something that says you feel that this project will be of historical significance to preserve the history and documents, artifacts of town of Pembroke. State to. So you will have a place to consolidate all your historical documents. People will then be able to go in and research them, so they're on the table, and also take in new documents that may be out there.
And I think that's where we kind of draw the line is we can do the letter, but as far as any amounts of money, I think that's gonna be up to the CPC committee. as
Yeah,
well.
to community
Right.
preservation, yes.
Right.
It would be helpful to have our support,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Once you
it's
go to
actually, did I
CPC,
pass that
correct?
out?
Yeah.
It's actually part of the requirements. Um, Number 2, has determined, number 1 actually, or has been determined by the local historic preservation commission to be significant in its history, archaeology, art, architecture, or cultural city or town.
Yeah.
That's it. So they're saying,
It's weird. If you look at the CPC application, it actually looks for the letter from the Historical Society, which can't happen because it's a private organization.
Mhm.
So then it comes to an actual town board, which is
Right.
So how is this different than what the Historical Society has up there in their room?
the historical.
I mean, it's totally private.
Private.
Yeah, we're
It's
private.
not open 9 to 8, 6
Yeah.
days a week for access.
Would you consider speaking with them to move some of this?
I'm president of the Historical Society. Well, you can't do that because it's all donations over the years. So you're taking people's donations and moving it somewhere else.
Right. You
It might
basically
be-
try to make it town versus where it's
Private.
private, right?
So does the town currently have things stored somewhere?
So that's where it gets sticky,
Yes.
because as you walk through the front door of the library, on the left-hand side, that was the historical document room. They turned it into office space and they moved all the historical documents into the 2 closets that are there. Hopefully, it's all getting moved out of the closet and gonna go into this room, I imagine. That's the plan.
Within the historical society, maybe there's something they may want to loan to the library.
Yeah.
Hey, this would be great. This is, original contribution.
Yeah.
You have the issue of the cemetery records as well, not having a climate controlled fire
Right.
safe.
I
Yeah.
was talking with somebody about that exactly, Laura, as well.
I guess it's down in the cemetery, in the storage vaults
Mm.
on the town hall.
So,
Great.
There's some things in the attic.
There's stuff at Bethel Chapel and.
Yeah.
There's books in the attic. I couldn't read them. It was too dark.
so in listening to what Scott has said and the other points that have been brought up, I feel this commission kind of needs to stay in their lane. So what I mean by that is, from a historical district commission, we are limited to the outside of the building. That's it. That is our lane. As far as like bathrooms, layout, historical rooms and things like that. That's all interior. We have zero jurisdiction in that. But having said that, if you're asking for support on the item, yep, from that we can do. We feel as a historic commission, this will be a great idea, but we can't go as far as saying, look, you need to fund this program. You need to do this. We don't have that power, but we can support what you're looking to try to do. If is that agreeable with everybody? I mean, what do you,
So it's twofold, right? It would be
Yeah.
our support in our capacity as the historic commission, as well as later, once things are all set, it's also a historic district, right?
correct.
But
Actually,
but
the
the thing,
library isn't.
once he fills out an application, right at the first line of the application, it's looking for support
Right.
from the local historical commission. So
Mhm.
somebody's gonna have to give him a letter of support.
Right.
I think that needs to be done, so as an application next August meeting. And
Yeah.
get something in and then
Yeah.
advertise it exactly as it needs to be advertised.
I feel we could, accommodate that. We just, again, when it comes into the aptitude of asking for monies and things like that, that's
No,
in
no,
that gray
That has to
area.
be CPC.
Right.
We can just, hey, this is a good project, but as far as money wise, I think it has to be.
Right.
Talking to Sabrina today, she says the town buildings request can, maybe should, I know she said can, maybe should, comes from the town manager.
Mhm.
So probably the town manager can put a request.
Right. So we can support the ideas of what you're trying to create and do, but that's where we end. Once the application is in, then we can go ahead and, yep, the exterior of the building is gonna look just like the rest of the library. Awesome, let's do it.
Julia made the new library director, was awesome. Said, well, maybe when they have the historic days at the society building, they could then come over to the historic building.
Yeah.
Presentation on the TV, somebody could be dressed up in pilgrims as they do, whatever.
We've already done a few presentations at the COA.
Room's about 16 by 20. That's current.
Um, the room's gonna be about 16 by 20, yeah, roughly. Hopefully, I think it's gonna be maybe more
About as
like
big as this.
17
Yeah.
by 20. We talked about moving things around.
Now, that 16 by 20 is not storage area.
That's not the storage.
It's like a
that's the-
conference
the need
area.
of the conference. It's about
This
the
is a point of
same.
clarification. Did Phil price out climate control for that storage?
I don't know. I did not,
Humidity.
Because that's,
there'll be something.
no, no, just saying, because I don't recall us discussing it. I just want, this is a.
That's one they we talked about, or talking mini splits versus this system on steroids that you have to use. You have to, which I didn't realize. I thought we could use all mini splits, but it's like a mini split. But because it's commercial, you have to have an air exchange, which many splits don't. You're just using, so you're gonna have to put in there and send it
Right.
out. So, but that'll. And the storage room.
Is it the ERV, I think it's called.
I think it's a great idea and we should support it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening.
See you in August.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Huh? I've been sick. I've been very sick, I think. But that was a very nice compliment, Bob. You don't look good.
Nice.
You could say I look better.
All right, moving down the HDC HC email address. How are we making out on that?
I'll make it tonight later. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Spent 2 weeks overseas and then I got COVID for a week.
Oh,
geez, what-
well,
I know, I'm fine now. but June was-
talk about a way to cover a room.
June was hideous. So.
All right, so we will have an email address for the next meeting. Outstanding. All right, so several members here, we got the opportunity to view live the webinar training that I had come across. Did everybody else get the opportunity to review it at their leisure with their favorite beverage? You did not.
Most of it.
Most of it, that's fine. It's okay. All right. Which is fine. Again, we're a volunteer organization. I completely understand that, if people have lives, I totally get it. But the few of us that did get the opportunity to view it, we have kind of conversed in regards to it afterwards. And there's some really, really great information in there, just in the simple sense of, if I can boil it all down to like one basic nutshell, it comes down to yes or no. That's it. When you create the gray area, that's when you run into, well, it could be this, but if it's a blue Sunday on a blue moon that's where we can't do that. So the theory is, in everything that we're trying to do, and bringing a new modernization and a digitalization to the HDC, HC, in being compliant, people should be able to look at what they want to do and kind of already have an answer before even coming in. And that's already there. And then they can come in and state their business, what they're looking to do, and then we can discuss it, sure. But at least they should have a much clearer idea as to what is happening. And a couple of other things that were also brought up that I just wanted to review here. That I don't know about, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about is, so as I just discussed a little while ago, when it comes time for that screen door, like we need to do, that doesn't make sense to me.
Can I just? say
Sure.
something? I just read you have to pay attention to the commas in the bylaw.
Mm.
Because the commas tell you a lot more than just what is. What it says here is storm doors and windows, comma, screen door and windows, comma. So that it's storm windows and screen windows are the issue, not the regular windows.
Not regular
I know,
windows.
I know, it's one of those little, about the
Screen doors,
commas.
comma.
Okay.
Bylaw, that's when I learned being the chair of the zoning board, is that you have to pay attention to the comments, because that makes huge difference in what the
Infiltrate.
bylaw says.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to say that, so we can all take a sigh of relief a little bit about, we can require 6/6 windows.
Do we need
Okay.
to clarify our guidelines then, right?
Well, it
Because
may
the
be.
average layperson.
Well, as Chris was just gonna say, I'm
Comma.
just gonna jump in for a second though,
Sorry.
because he and I have talked about this too. I think the interesting thing about that webinar, which is really worth watching, there was someone from Denver who was moderating it. Then they were talking about Little Rock, San Francisco,
Yep.
and
So Minnesota. something,
yeah, Minneapolis. I have to be honest with you, we have more historical structures in this town than I think than most of those
Yeah.
places had.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting, and they were talking about,
One of the first.
well, that's exactly right. So they were talking about things
Right.
from 1860 and
Mm.
stuff like that. But so that there was that piece of it. But I think that, so it was interesting. I mean, obviously these were cities, so they were able to fund, large scale surveys and
They have money.
They have money.
That's the bottom line.
but they also have the willing to spend it. I mean, that's the other
Yeah.
thing too, because you can have money but not be willing to consider that stuff important. So the question to me was, how do we make this stuff important enough to everybody in this town that we can find the money to do? Because I'll be honest with you, I said this to Chris, I think we need to hire someone who can help survey what we have and make recommendations about what we should have in these bylaws. Because I think that just like with this thing with the storm window, why wouldn't a storm door be considered something to be?
Yeah, because I mean, it's the very
Because-
exterior part you're gonna
Exactly,
see.
that's exactly right. I mean, so that is a question, and why not paint colors? I mean, that.
You think you need this, you need money? You hire somebody?
That's a question I have for Bill Chenard.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting question. If we could, I don't know, Scott, do you know the answer to that?
Positive. I don't think you can, because he just ended up giving us the guidelines of what, if you wanted to spend the historical
Yeah.
aspect of it, of a CPC, and it needs to fall into these guidelines. I don't
Mhm.
know if that would fall into the guidelines.
So,
Well,
we get the town to
this
pay for
question is documented. To be honest with you, I'm not clear about our role in this library project.
Mm.
But this issue with the document, I don't know, but I think maybe we should ask town council for an opinion on that. Because I just think that, if we could get CPC money to do the fund the work, it would be really great. I mean,
I don't see, sorry to jump in, I don't see
Yeah,
why
please do.
not, why we couldn't decide as a commission to request funds for this. I
Mhm.
think that's-
yeah, we can't, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right about
and so
that.
that way are able to have it talked about in.
Does
Yeah.
the zoning changes now?
Planning board. So Andy is very important to have in this conversation.
Could the
Yeah.
planning board change stuff for us?
It has to go to town meeting. We
Okay.
can make a bylaw change and go to
Mm.
town meeting, but
Mhm.
I think the question is, do we do it piecemeal or do we have a more sort of comprehensive
Make
overview.
it a little organized.
Yeah.
So that's the other question. And I think that also, what I would like to, I had mentioned to Chris when I came in, I work with Historic New England a lot, and I've asked them for names of a couple of consultants. What I'd like to get from them is a ballpark figure on what something like this is.
Mhm.
So we know what we're talking about.
Right.
So we're not, it's something that's reasonable we can work with, and then we can figure out, I know there's some local consultants around too. Scott, you probably know several too, that woman that was, I mean,
Oh, yeah, from the master plan.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some
Yeah,
people,
they do. consult.
so there's other people we can look at, but I do think that, it will be a big job to do this, but the other piece is that it's gonna take a lot of community outreach.
So one of the things that I was kind of contemplating, and I'm just looking at my notes here. So there are programs out there for like urban development and like college programs and things like that, interns. Like, is there an opportunity, I mean, to approach a college that has this program looking for their top students, who wouldn't want to get involved at that level for their next job, to go ahead and say, hey, I help Pembroke develop their plan.
UMass is right there.
There you go.
I think,
Like,
I think Boston University has a historic preservation program. I'm pretty sure they do.
exactly. So I mean,
That's actually
it's just
very good.
it's just a question of reaching out. That's all. So,
That's a very good idea.
To be their dissertation, right?
Well, no, yeah, no, I mean, no, I mean, they have to do things. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
that's
I mean,
another,
People reach out to me all the time. and things like
yeah.
We get a bunch of college kids to the Turner House.
mhm.
That's our college professors.
Right. So I mean, does anybody want to like kind of figure out or take an opportunity to make some calls to some schools? Find,
I think we should define what we want to do first.
Mhm.
Okay.
Let me ask you, we should come up with a little one pager of what it
Okay.
is we're trying to do. So
Okay.
we actually have something concrete to tell people.
Okay.
So, 'cause I think that would be helpful to
Project
sort of,
scope.
yeah, frame the discussion, because it could get very.
yeah.
So I think that would be helpful if we could do that. I'm happy to work on that.
Mhm.
And then we can, at our next meeting, we could review it. Next meeting.
So, yep. So the couple other things that have come up that in regards to this, as we're all aware of, Massachusetts just passed the ADU law in regards to this, that it's now a right versus, a request. So having said that, now this little gray area is simply someone wants to build a little house next to their historic house. Do we have control over that? It's a separate structure. So again, this is kind of that gray area that I
Well,
think we
it
need
would be
to,
in the historical district.
Yeah, we just.
not
Not
necessarily,
necessarily.
not necessarily. There are 349 as of right now, historical homes in Pembroke.
Well, you don't have say over those homes outside the district.
Same as a shed, right? They
I
can
mean,
build
if
whatever
they want to
want.
knock it down, demo it, that's what you have say. Anything else, you don't have say.
We don't have-
If it's outside the district, the only thing you have say over, whether they want to demo it or not, on top of that, you don't have any say.
Okay.
What defines a historic house?
Yeah, it's the age. It's 1901 and older. 1901, yeah. And again, that could also be something as moving forward. Everything's getting older, but our guideline is kind of locked in. Are we gonna shift it as well? So again, that is,
The philosophical question is, do we think we should have some say over historic buildings that are not in the historic district?
I think we absolutely
I
should.
got a lot of pushback with the master plan, even trying to expand the historic district, anything that.
I'm not suggesting we wouldn't get pushback, but I guess the question is, but should we think about that?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think we absolutely should think about it. I mean, we can,
We've all seen houses that get absolutely destroyed.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I mean, I'm just
But
saying,
people just don't care.
but I think, but there's also an issue of not a lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that is another big issue. I mean, just like, I was stunned to hear that with 349 homes, built before 1901. I mean, I was kind of stunned.
Yeah.
But, I think that.
Well, you start to get into all the small cottages on the lakes. and stuff
Exactly,
like that.
exactly, but exactly,
Yeah.
but still, some of those, I mean, the other question is what makes it significant? Right?
Mhm.
I mean, George Washington didn't sleep everywhere,
Right.
I mean, but if it was built by old growth trees, that make it significant? Can human be, I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking the question.
We don't have criteria, it just says as the
Yeah,
commissions
yeah.
and judges.
So, and I
right,
think,
which
and
is
I
very
think that,
vague.
and I think the criteria is something that we really do need to have,
Mhm. Again, it's working on establishing those
guidelines,
guidelines.
yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of putting that in, and that also comes into what we're going to be talking about a little bit later as well, about guidelines, black and white. This is, here it is. Everything is defined. All right, so let's, I guess how to go ahead and put this is, let's, I guess, table this for possibly August um, or future, I guess is probably the better way to put it, for coming up with some type of guidelines, a game plan of talking about the historical district, historical homes, how we can have help preserve Pembroke's rich history with their homes. And we'll start just putting together a collaborative ideas.
Is there actually two actions there? There's one pager for the project scope, so we can scope out what a consultant would look like,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
We can Chop that out,
Yep.
and then there's another one on clarifying what is historically significant.
And I think it should be a continuation. I wouldn't table it. I think it should be on the agenda every single meeting.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think we should be on the agenda every single meeting until we get this stuff kind of resolved, because to me, this has been the biggest issue that this
Yep.
committee has, really.
yes, I agree. I
So
agree.
it should be the agenda item at every meeting. And if we have
Okay.
nothing to say,
So,
Well, there could be
Judy, why don't you make a motion? Yeah, do you make a motion, or we just want to put it under old business?
motion, because I think we should make it clear that that's what we're discussing.
Okay,
That we should make a motion that we're gonna be reviewing our guidelines and our current bylaws that have to do with the historic district and the historic commission. To update them and make them more relevant to what the historic nature of the town is. And it's gonna be an ongoing process for this committee.
second? Have a second? Everyone agree, compliant?
Yeah.
Yes, nays? Awesome. All right, very quickly, in talking about, monies and funding and things like that, the application or the idea of trying to gain grants, either it be federal or state grants, for the Historical District Commission, Historic Commission. Yeah, so this was, so in talking with Andy and Scott as well, trying to go ahead and see what we can come up with. Does anybody know anybody that does grant writing or anything like that? Or anybody that does any type of research or anything like that?
Husband knows a couple guys. He's on the fire department in Quincy. They write grants all the time.
Okay, is there an opportunity to possibly reach out to see if we can
I
just
could have an
get some
informational
help?
conversation and say, where are your tips? Where'd you learn? Who'd you learn it from? What
Yeah,
works, what doesn't work. Yeah.
that would be fantastic. We can do that. Because again, if we could go ahead and, instead of hitting up the town of Pembroke for money or CPC money, if the feds or the state have opportunity for funding to help this, absolutely, let's take advantage of it while we can.
How do grant writers generally get paid? Is it a percentage of the grant?
I think it's a percentage of the grant.
Usually hourly, those guys are consultants. I mean, I never paid anything.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Oh, okay. I always thought it was like kind of like a finder's fee that they, that's how they.
Not
Nonprofits.
necessarily.
In nonprofits, it's usually you have a contract for a scope of work, and you pay them a certain amount of money for that. And if they don't get the grant, you pay them anyway, but it's not like, but I don't think you have to do it as a percentage of anything. I think it's just a fee. So that would be good if you knew someone who was interested in historic work too, that.
I've got an architect I work with. And she had brought a woman to me one time a few years ago. That was a grant writer.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can dig her out.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, if that would be great.
Yeah,
Okay, if you
historic-
could.
Very easy to work.
I know from
Awesome.
the historical society. Society, Ken Sweezy, has sent me a few, grant, opportunities. AARP also has grant opportunities. I know somebody that's trying to help us with these grants, so. I mean,
Who she mentioned was it,
OCPC?
yeah, but yes, the Old Colony Planning Council.
Yep. Yeah, I can
I think
approach
those are the
them.
ones that I did a grant that was on the historical side quite a few years back, but I think that's grant money there too.
I don't know if Mass Historic, I don't know if they have any sources, I don't. But we should work with Ken Sweezy and those guys. We should.
Yeah, the one he sent out had a lot of stipulations that we weren't gonna meet.
We're gonna qualify for.
We weren't gonna qualify, but maybe as far as the town might qualify, because the first thing was, MBTA, zoning compliant, which we are.
We are,
Yeah.
yes, we are.
Yep. Hey, nothing for nothing. It's the state's gonna keep beating that up, but hey. But we are compliant. All right, so Jay will get your person,
Yep.
you know, OCPC and Quincy Fire. So we'll start collaboratively kind of putting this together
we can
and
dig
see what we can dig up. And maybe we'll have something ready for the August meeting to update and kind of go from there. All right, where I am waiting on honor still, but
No, we still got the mission, the mission statement stuff?
yeah, well, I would kind of, because I was gonna put those all together
Okay.
afterwards, but I can go ahead and go with so on the mission statement itself, we're putting that together. Were we tweaking that for?
I thought there was two of them we were looking at.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of put them together.
Yeah.
Where do they live once we approve them, right? Like just on the website? Does it become part of our guidelines?
It'll be part of our guidelines and it will be on the website. Yep.
So one thing with the guidelines, you look at the guidelines, they mirror the bylaws.
Mhm.
So now you're gonna have stuff that's not an actual bylaw. Bylaw needs to go through town meeting.
Oh, it's just a definition.
Just a
Right.
definition.
I mean, it's-
But,
yeah. And again, I feel it's one of those things that we can, talk to the town manager and put, like, this is what we want to do. This is like, just give us the path and, okay, this is what you need to do. Okay, here we go. And that's it. So, we'll see. There he is. So, all right, so we're still in the process of tweaking.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's get that on for the agenda for the final mission statement for August. And we will get that taken care of. And
Have
then,
any issues with the role descriptions?
no, so I'm gonna pause on that because I just saw the individual who we need to see in a moment just walk up the stairs. And we are going to do what we need to do.
Please.
I just sent you an email from BU. They have the preservation department and they have student work.
Perfect.
Actually, I've worked with them and there's before when I was the YW.
Yeah,
Be a nice master's project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
excellent. All right.
Expect this.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
No, exactly. No, I agree with you, but still, I knew that they did. So,
All right, I will entertain the motion to go into executive session under Mass General Law C 30A 21A to discuss open meeting law complaint against the Historical District Commission filed by Andrew Spife on June 30th and the Historical District's Commission's response. I would like to create a roll call vote to go into
I'll
executive
second that
session.
one. I'll second that.
Second it.
Somebody's gonna say
Yeah.
that they so moved.
So moved. Roll call vote to go.
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Allison.
Yes.
So carried. We will be now going into an executive session. We will not be coming back after this session. Thank you to the residents of Pembroke for watching us this evening.